stunning looks than swift.
First 50 overs of cricket then in the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup 2023, and after New Zealand won the toss and put the defending champions in, they've somehow limped their way yet to 282. So it wasn't the 340, 350 that we all thought we'll get the minute we see England bat in the way that they do in India. But we try and make sense of it all. What worked for New Zealand? How good is the score? How good is the surface? All that and more for the next 20 minutes on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday with Anil Kumble and Dale Steyn, both of whom were close to 330, 340. I'm telling you, it was at the tip of my tongue before I left you all that I'll say, I think they'll go below 270, 280. But now I can't claim that was on my mind.
I'm not going to lie. I was going to say the exact same thing. I was going to go the opposite to you. And I was going to say 281, and I don't know why I said 331. But anyway, that was just to go, differently.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we spend some time and take a second prediction now on the pre-show. But Dale, make sense of that 282 and whether this is advantage New Zealand or not just yet.
Probably not just yet. Opening game, there can be a little bit of jitters around. England are a really, really good cricket team. They've got some fantastic bowlers, and you lose one or two wickets early, you've got to rebuild without Kane Williamson there, and we always talk about Kane. You just never know. It's one of those totals that you feel like you should get. It's not over 300, but it's also one of those totals that can be quite difficult to chase down.
How do you describe that batting effort?
I thought New Zealand should get the credit, the way they bowled. Yes, it was not the typical approach that you would expect from England. They were a bit cautious at the start. Of course, Bairstow got off to a good start, but they were a bit cautious. I thought Matt Henry bowled exceptionally well, and Tom Latham captained the side really well, used his bowlers, resources well. No Saudi. He had to manage with Rachin Ravindra. He did get his 10 overs, although he was very expensive, and Neesham. So and Glenn Phillips was the highlight for them, picking up 2 wickets. So I thought they managed really well. England batting, they'll be disappointed. Joe Root was obviously the star of the batting performance from England, but they consistently picked those wickets. They broke partnerships and kept England under check.
Yeah, they're just New Zealand, aren't they? They're just extraordinarily, I wouldn't want to say ordinary, but there's nothing exceptional, and yet it's so efficient. I can't help but think that this is so typical New Zealand. They miss 2 or 3 key players, and yet they make life hard for almost a full strength England side, barring Ben Stokes. But what made getting that sort of start difficult for an England? Anil says they were cautious, but they made cautious. And how do you describe what you saw from New Zealand today?
Well, that's a typical New Zealand performance for you. We spoke about it off air, where they're good in the field, they never fumble, they never let runs go through, they never bowl any wides, they keep their foot behind the line, there's no balls, they do everything, we call it the basics, but they do them really, really well, and then put in some good captaincy and some clever fielding and some clever bowling with good skills, they're going to get wickets all the time. But Matt Henry was superb at the top of the order, Trent Boult bowled nicely, Latham managed his bowlers really well. And then the guys that came on, like when you're getting bonus wickets from Glenn Phillips, who's your part-time bowler, that's always going to help. And then you've got to rebuild, and then you've got those guys that do those basics so well over and over again. You hardly get a bad ball. It's a typical New Zealand kind of way of playing.
Well, what makes that happen, though, if you, with your experience of playing alongside them, against them, is that just a thing that is typical New Zealand, almost a culture that's established that, these guys bowl less bad balls, less loose balls, drop less catches than perhaps a lot of other people around the world?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, when you look at like maybe South Africa, I can speak from a South African point of view. Whenever I listen to the outside people, they always say South Africa, great fielding team. 1992, maybe John T. Rhodes started that trend and became a culture for us. Great fast bowling, like stack of bowlers. You think New Zealand, you just think they never do anything wrong. They're always doing everything correctly, by the book. And I suppose it serves them well because for a long period, they never had any standout superstars. They just had these guys that just did the ordinary very, very well. And now they've got some great players, whether it be Devon Conway, Boult, Phillips with his power and his good fielding. Now they're starting to get the excellent players as well as that brilliant kind of basics that they do. They become a force to be reckoned with. And that's why they make finals and semi-finals so regularly in big competitions.
Yeah, let's talk about the 2 standout bowlers here, and we'll bring up Matt Henry, who Dale and Anil have spoken of. Let's start with Mitchell Santner with with you, Anil. I have quite an early introduction of spin. I thought there's going to be a while before spinners, captains will be wary of bringing a spinner in the first 10. But again, Latham brought him on early and he was the standout spinner.
Yeah, possibly because he was the wicket keeper. He saw that the wicket was a bit tacky.
Yeah.
Initially, it was not coming on. You could see that even with the faster bowlers, Matt Henry was getting a bit of seam movement. Trent Bolt was not easy to pick. Of course, once he drifted, it was easier. But I thought, that's when the captaincy comes in and introducing the spinner to just see whether there was a bit of grip on the surface. Santner was brilliant. I mean, we spoke about the sort of evolution of Santner, slowing things down, not easy. I mean, his action sort of helps that. He just stops at the crease and then just delivers, looks as though he's just using only one hand to bowl. Doesn't use the non-leading arm. So that's something that he's sort of done really well over the last few years, and he bowled superbly. The lack of pace was something I'm sure the New Zealand think tank would have sort of sat down and understood coming into this game against England. All of them want the ball coming onto them, and as soon as they saw the pitch a little bit slightly on the slower side, everyone took pace off, including the spinner.
Yeah, is it a harder skill to bowl that slow without conceding boundary balls, bad balls?
Yeah, it is. It is hard because Santner is not a short man. He's pretty tall, and for a tall spinner, it's not easy to just slow things down. And he's bowled superbly today.
Yeah. Matt Henry, what caused his success today? Because those were some big wickets. Malan, Josh Butler after he'd got a start. And it again seemed like Matt Henry was bowling very few bad balls. But what do you account for his success, especially the wickets he took?
Yeah, just relentless in an area, I suppose. You look at that wagon wheel. What would you call it? Like what is that?
Why can't I get the term?
I can't even
the
think
pitch
of
map.
the pitch
My
map.
goodness,
There
the
you
pitch
go.
map. Yeah.
I'm the bowler. I don't even know what that is.
I'm the broadcaster. I should know. Yeah.
But he was just relentless on hitting that line and length, like all the time, and moving just enough that always gave the batters a little bit of difficulty. He wasn't quite there to drive. It wasn't quite short enough to pull or get onto the back foot. You always talk about that test match kind of length. And you think test matches are going out the window, but good test match bowlers make good white ball bowlers too, especially on days like this where there is a little bit of something. And the thing about New Zealand is, another thing about them is they don't just make a decision on the day. They don't just spin the toss and go, oh, it looks good, we're going to have a bat. For every decision that they make, there's a lot of planning and thinking about it. So they obviously won the toss. They've done a little bit of homework. Maybe there's dew this evening. They looked at the pitch, and they've obviously decided, okay, cool, we're going to have a bowl first. An opening game in India, it's a big decision to make.
Yeah.
But they're that kind of team that they just don't leave any stone unturned, and they made a good decision today.
I guess that's the point that perhaps goes into your assessment when you were watching the ball turn. Saying they could have played Sodhi today. And did they miss a trick by playing Sodhi? Because you had to still have 10 overs of Ravindra that have gone for 76, 7 overs of Neesham have gone at 8. Or was it what Dale just said? What if you're bowling second then?
No, I think they probably wanted to sort of strengthen their batting without Kane Williamson there, because Tim Southee and Kane Williamson coming back into this team only will strengthen their lineup. But without Kane Williamson, who's sort of the fulcrum for their batting, they obviously took the other step of strengthening their batting, and I thought Ravindra batted brilliantly in that warm-up game against Pakistan, and that's the other thing as well. They probably fancy chasing, and that's one of the reasons why they sort of chose to field first. Because the two games that they've had some good opposition. Pakistan fast bowlers, South African fast bowlers, so they've done really well, scored more than 300 runs, and they sort of believe that, okay, this surface is a bit tacky because we don't get to see that. They have seen that today and taken that decision.
Right, they also have the luxury of having part-time off spin. And Glenn Phillips, who can do no wrong. You spent some time with him, didn't you? Sunrisers man, he can do pretty much everything, Glenn Phillips, including roll his arm over and get rid of, what was it, Joe Root and Moeen Ali.
Big wickets, those big wickets. And he bowled 7 balls, he had 2 wickets, There's
a 7-ball man of the match innings he had, I think, player of the match innings
exactly.
in the IPL.
You just need 7 balls in a whole game, and he can be your man of the match. He's a great fielder, and he's an all-round cricketer, really. If something happens to Latham, he can also take the gloves. So he's a valuable asset to that side.
Can't bowl fast, okay.
No. He tried. He's tried. Because he's originally from South Africa. He was born in South Africa. So there's fast blood in him, fast bowler's blood in him, but he's not quite.
Try and understand the England batting effort though, and you rightly remarked when you were seeing the scorecard, everyone got to double figures. What did they miss?
Yeah, I suppose they missed that one guy to go through, or two guys to kind of go through. You know, Joe Root getting out in the 41st over on 77.
42nd, yes.
Yeah, if he just batted normally, they would have gotten 300. You know, at that point, it's pretty stock standard. But you get one other guy, a Butler, who was in at that point, or somebody else just to kick on in the typical England way, and they're going to get that 320, 330, 340. But still a somewhat competitive score, but I think they'll feel short.
The thing about the Joe Root normal is there's a new normal to him. He is reverse lapping Trent Bolt at 6 or 7, and then when he's reverse sweeping Glenn Phillips and missing it, or trying to sweep Phillips and missing it, it makes us think, why didn't he just bat normally? So how do you make sense?
No, I agree. I suppose it's just when you get out, you get criticised, and when you don't, and you pull it off, you look amazing. Yeah.
But do you sense that it required a different way to bat? The importance of Joe Root playing till 50 required a little bit of almost retro ODI cricket.
Well, who he was batting with at that point, potentially, you just think, you know, a little bit longer and you're fine. When he first comes in and he pulls it off against Trent Bolt, if he gets out, you're looking Liam Livingstone still coming. You've got a bunch of other guys to go, so that's fine. Joe Root doing that, but at that point, you're thinking, look at the last 9 overs, bat regularly, you get 300.
Yeah. Is there a pattern that you notice perhaps where you think, you know, what's happening here with England? When Bairstow hit 6 of the first runs of the World Cup came like that, like, this is good, but you could see that they could have possibly fallen off, and it did happen. They had to limb their way to make sure they batted the 50 overs. Was there anything that you noticed where you felt, this isn't quite working for England and they should do it differently?
No, I think this pitch was not that flat
surface.
that probably we all thought that it would be. There was a little bit in for the bowler. Whoever sort of bowled in that good areas, the test match length that Dale speaks about, was not easy. It was not coming on. You had to sort of, get yourself in for you to play a few shots. So I think England, yes, they've done well. In fact, the last wicket pair added 30 runs, valuable runs, so 282. If they bowl in the right areas and pick up early wickets, then it's probably game on. But you never know. I mean, probably New Zealand would have thought that, okay, under lights, the wicket would slightly get better with a bit of dew in. That will certainly help the batting.
This is the genius of this template, isn't it? When you bat deep and you go hard, on a bad day, which we feel like it is for some reason, still 282.
Yeah, we said that about England though. You know, you thought that they might get bowled out in the 42nd over and still score 260, 270 or whatever it is. And their last two put on 30 to get them to 280. So, you know, you're not far off from that kind of prediction. But it seems like an also typical England way of batting. Just as the guys are getting in, they're not scared to carry on going and get out. And you don't see any head shakes or grabbing of the faces in the dressing room. They just carry on.
Yeah. There was one from Ben Stokes when Harry Brook got out. Now, I wonder if you were in Brendan McCullum's place. Guys hit Rachin Ravindra for, 16 of the over? And you think, yeah, that's right, because part-time spinner put him under pressure and then he gets out. So do you celebrate that effort from a young man, or do you just go, that's the ball, you've done what you need to in the over, just pat deep, it's a 50-over game?
Yeah, but it was a ball to be hit. It's not like he was searching for it. It was something that was coming his way. So he just looked to get through that momentum that he got. I mean, he got 3 boundaries, two fours and a 6, and then you're again dished up with another short ball. He wanted to probably hit it in the stand. So that to me was probably the mistake that he made, looking to hit really long 6 rather than just hitting it in the gap. Yeah, but you can't really blame him. It was a lucky breakthrough for New Zealand.
You never know the mindset there too, because he could be thinking, he's like, oh, I've got 16, and maybe I should actually just knock this one for 1. And then it's a bad ball. He's like, oh, maybe I need to hit this, and then you're half in it, and then you get out, you know. So it could also be that kind of thinking, whereas if he's thinking the whole time, and I'm just, speaking of cuff here, he could have hit that for 6 any day, because that's his shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Part-time spinners need a little bit going their way, a little bit of luck. Spinners in general, but I'm not putting it that way. They bowl a lot of good balls and don't get wickets. Let's look ahead, shall we? New Zealand, if they are the efficient, competent team that we know them to be, they should be able to get these runs, because I think it's fair to say this is still a subpar score, or do you sense it's a par score looking at the surface?
At Ahmedabad, the 250 plus is, par, but 280, looking at England, New Zealand,
will it get better to bat though, Anil?
I think it will. Yeah. It will certainly get better, because there will be some dew, and it will only get better. I don't see much turn happening. Yes, Rashid will get a little turn on the surface, but New Zealand, if they get through that first 10 overs, then I think they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, we got a player like Devon Conway. A number of us perhaps quietly feel like if New Zealand have a good tournament, it'll coincide with Devon Conway having a good tournament. And if you look at the player that he's become, this is one of the additions, you could say, to the 2019 batch of New Zealand cricketers in the World Cup. How good has he been he's not played a lot of ODI cricket, it's only been 3 games, but his impressive style, I guess, Dale, of how he's gone about playing IPL cricket over here, there's an orthodoxy to it that almost makes you feel comfortable that Conway will boss, or at least have a very comfortable above average World Cup.
Yeah, I think the IPL, he's been wonderful in the IPL. And from his first ODI, I can't remember what his original score was on his debut, but literally from then, you often see guys come in, they play their first game, they look like they got a little bit of work to do, but Conway looked like he walked in and he just felt like he owned that position and belonged at international cricket. So I'm not really too bothered with how many ODIs he's played in India. He's played a lot of IPL cricket here. He's got some great international cricket under the belt. So he is the guy, he is the glue for them right now.
And also, you know, what's been impressive about Conway is his ability to play spin.
Yes.
He's improved a lot. You don't say that often of a New Zealand opener coming in and then playing spin really well. And he's a wonderful player. So I'm sure New Zealand, if they, like you said, if New Zealand needs to have a good World Cup, then Conway needs to score runs for them.
He's another one of those South African New Zealanders, isn't he?
We've got a bunch of South Africans all over the world.
What's going on over there? They could do with Conway could do with a green shirt, can he? Right. Now, very good, Devon Conway, and we know that Tom Latham has already proved his worth when he's toured India. He's a hard man to dismiss when he comes to these parts of the world. And Anil, again, it's another player from what we describe as the Sena countries, who's shown he plays spin so well for a record like that. 52 at an average, strike rate of 85 in 11 innings, so a decent sample size in India. That is quite an asset to have in a World Cup.
Yes, and he's a quality player. I mean, we know that what he's been able to achieve for New Zealand in one-dayers and also in test matches. He's an outstanding player. Like you said, his spin game has also improved, and that's one of the reasons why you see those kind of numbers. And he's batted really well. Chasing, he's the key. We have seen many New Zealand chases with Tom Latham being there and getting those hundreds. So, yes, if New Zealand have to go all the way, these key players will have to come good. And what better way to start against the champion side of England?
I like to ask this question over and over again because I think it's worth asking some questions again and again. What exactly is tacky as a surface? Like, what does that make you do?
It's a bit damp,
right?
So it stops a bit, and then it seems around a little bit. So it'll probably remain like that for about 8 overs, 9 overs. And as a wicket keeper, you probably get the first idea of what the pitch is, and maybe that's what New Zealand saw when they won the toss.
The likelihood of it changing, though, is significant. A tacky pitch is tackier in the day. Nothing like that.
No, I don't think it'll remain like that. But once the dew comes on and you have the roller now in between innings, it should get better.
Yeah. What can England's bowlers learn from what they saw in that first innings, or is it slightly different conditions that they'll have to understand? They've got guys like Curran, Chris Wokes, Mark Wood. It doesn't quite ooze of the same threat that they had back in 2019 when Jofra Archer was in that team too. But can they pick up a thing or two from what they've seen in the first innings?
I mean, if you're going to do what New Zealand did, where you keep it real simple and you challenge in the inside and outside edge of the bat on that off stump with a good length, if there is that little bit of tackiness, it's going to be difficult. Initially, the first 10, maybe 15 overs, and then it should get easier. And then England are going to have to come up with some clever plans, because if there is a bit of dew, and I've been asking around and people said there is a bit of dew, the ball will then start to skid on a little bit, and it will become a lot easier for batting. So now you've got to be smarter with who you use, when you use, how you bowl, field settings, those kind of things. Then clever captaincy really comes into play. But Mark Wood could be used as somebody who's a wicket taker. So as soon as a wicket falls, they might bring him in, because when there's dew, it could take off and fly, and he could be used as a real threat and wicket taker. And then the other guys are just going to have to keep it as simple as possible with some smart captaincy.
Wokes and Wood with the new ball, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
straight away?
Say so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you see the early introduction of spin in the second innings as well?
Generally, not England. I think they'll sort of wait for the 10 overs to happen, not in the power play. Unlikely, unless New Zealand come really hard at the fast bowlers and then they get off to a great start. Then maybe you'll see spin.
Do you sense that will be the New Zealand approach?
Not necessarily. I think Conway is someone who sort of
Bats normally.
bats normally,
Yeah.
and I'm sure New Zealand's approach would be to use the 10 overs, of course, but not go crazy because you don't want to lose wickets up front.
Yeah, I mean, you're batting till 9. Poor Santner comes in at 9. It's a nice batting lineup to have when you're chasing 282. Now, given Anil Kumble had a strong influence on your prediction at the pre-show, let me go first to you.
Oh my gosh.
So now you tell me, Dale Steyn, all things considered, 282, it still seems like it's a score New Zealand would fancy. Are you going to fancy for them to get this, and how easy?
I mean, it depends on the dew, but I think they're going to get it. I think they'll get it around the 47th, 46th over, somewhere there.
Anil Kumble.
I think so. I think New Zealand have a great chance. This is their best chance to get through and start the World Cup on a winning note. Like I said, they're in the warm-up games. They played against two quality sides, quality bowling attacks, and both those games, New Zealand did well with the bat. So I expect them to chase this down.
All right, comfortably though, you think as well?
Yeah, it'll be a close game, but I think New Zealand should get through.
When they come together, they tend to give us close games. Who would bet against 2 super overs back-to-back between England and New Zealand in World Cup cricket? It'll be a strong man to do that, but let's hope it is a start that we remember. It's been interesting. It's been sort of gripping old school ODI cricket for the first 50 overs of the World Cup. Big thank you to Dale Steyn and Anil Kumble. We hear from them at the end of this game, which they both believe New Zealand should end up on the right side of the result of. So join us for Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, and do download the mobile app if you haven't already. There's a lot being written, it's said. We got Matt Roller at the ground, Sid Monga at the ground, so I'm sure there's plenty of updates coming in from this World Cup opener. It'll be an upset for New Zealand. A lot of us had England on the right side of this result, so it should make for a fascinating post-match analysis. Join us then. Bye-bye.
Stunning looks, then swift,